All right, hey, what up, guys? We're going to continue on talking about pins, and some of it will be review of the last lesson we put up. But we're going to look at pinning with regard to striking on the ground. So this would be for like MMA or amateur MMA or combat sambo or just a real fight. So you're on your back. So we talked yesterday just about, we started looking at, as our first pin, crossbody mount here, where we're trying to trap his arm in our hip, right? And we've either got a gable grip here, and just to review, my knee comes to the outside of my elbow. I'm under here, right? So I'm sealing up that space, able to drive shoulder pressure into his face, or jaw, turn your head so I'm not gonna smash your nose, but down like that, right? And his arm is trapped in my hip. And this knee, we talked about being tight to his hips, because he's gonna try and move his hips, and I'm trying to control his quadrants, his shoulders and his hips. At least two of them, right? But at least two, but hopefully three, maybe four. So, and then in the last lesson, we also talked about, not in the context of combat sambo, but just in regular pins, lowering our center of gravity to make ourselves heavier. Sometimes we need to extend the leg to get lower, right? Because we talked about not becoming a table, not leaning on our elbows and knees, like making sure our weight is on him. So we spread our base, kind of raise our elbows up so I'm not leaning on them. I can move my arm around, right? If I'm too far forward leaning on my elbow, there's no pressure on him. All the pressure on him, kind of sternum to sternum. So this is free to move. I'm not leaning, I'm not committing this arm to supporting my weight. But we talked about if a guy is strong and he can roll you, right? Or if I need to lower my center of gravity, that you can lower this leg, which drops your hip. But if you do, you want to block his hip with your arm, right? Something has to block this hip, okay? The thing is, if we can also lower our center of gravity here, but that gives him an opportunity to frame and get a forearm, not that side, this arm. Yeah, it gets that arm some space, right? So me personally, I like to keep this tight around the shoulder girdle. And if I need to drop my weight, drop this one. And come here and block the hip. So if you start shrimping towards me, I'm doing that, right? The other thing we talked about yesterday was keeping legs away from legs, right? We want to be as perpendicular or above him as possible. So you'll see, even if I'm laying next to him and I'm really low, my center of gravity is still pretty high in relation to him, and he can just roll me over from here. Oh, that way, or over that way, yes, right? So we want to be like kind of like 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, or 12 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So I want to get higher on him. See this, if I circle higher, now this arm is more trapped. I've got more pressure on his jaw and neck, and it's going to be harder for him to roll me, right? Now some guys, if you have your knee in, they're really strong, they can roll you, right? So just start lifting me up and roll me over. Yeah, they can do that, right? Especially if they're bigger than you, stronger than you. And that's when you really want to extend your legs and lower your center of gravity. So if I'm here, if I'm holding him, and he starts to roll me, and I go like that, now he drops now that lowers my center of gravity, he can't roll me anymore. But what it does is it opens up a chance for him to frame, right? So right now, his arm is trapped. He wants to get a frame in here and here to create space, right? So he might use the ploy of a roll to make me base out and sprawl. So he ploys me, I go like that, and then he can get a frame. Now I have to work to get back tight. And we talked about using the hip switch here, sliding in, and then stepping back over, trap the arm again. All right, so this is all what we talked about yesterday, holding the pin. Now, added strikes, right? Lay down. Come back out just a touch. Yeah. Yeah. What happens a lot of times is, I want you guys to think of strikes as kind of opportunistic. We never want to give up the pin to strike. We want to be able to pin and strike, right? So what happens a lot of times is guys have heavy pressure, whatever, and then they get excited, then they sit up and they start going to punch or something, and they give all this space in, and he starts shrimping, and he replaces a guard or gets a knee shield in or something, because I gave him the space, right? So like kind of our winning strategy, especially in amateur MMA, when the first 3 fights in New York, in many states, you're not allowed to ground and pound. You're only to the face, you're only allowed to hit to the body. And I also think knees to the body are underused in pro MMA too. So what we're gonna do is use this pin, right? And we talked about blocking the hip and all that. I'm gonna extend this knee just for a split. Once he's, struggling, working, trying to get the frame, we talked about don't raise your head up. That gives him an opportunity to get this in, that frame. Keep your head buried, right? Tight to him. Then you're gonna, maybe he starts to roll you. And we do our sprawl. Good, roll, and I sprawl this out. Block the hip. But look what I'm opening up. Ribs right here. Blocking the hip. Boom! Knee him when you come back in, right? You can do quick knees just from here without blocking the hip. Boom! Right? But, especially with combat sambo or clothing, you hold the jacket. Base out, block this. Throw your knee when you bring your knee back to control his quadrant. Bam! And come back. Right? Same thing. I don't want to just sit up and start hitting him in the gut, leaving all this space, or elbowing him here and creating space. I always want to control. Look, hammer fist to the thigh. Bang. Right? Body shot right here. Bang. Knee. Bang. One of the best things you can do is get a Navy ride. If he's squirming and you're able to get that, right? Now you can drop knees onto his ribs, like his ribs are like in a twister. You don't knee him in the back. You bring him up high, because now my weight is on his face, and drop it right in there, like that, right? So from here, all I want you guys to do first is just practice again, getting a nice side mount. Let your partner try to roll you. You sprawl, block the hip, right? As you come back, knee. Don't knee the head. Well, in some fights that would be legal, like a street fight or something, but for combat sambo stuff, don't do it. But you do want to bring it back to trap his arm, right? Then you come back here. He tries to roll you again. You sprawl, block the hip. Boom, boom, boom. Knee. But let's say he got that frame in. We do a hip switch to a scarf, controlling this arm. Look at this. Bang, bang, bang. Then we step back. Now, when we step back, don't make this mistake. This leg, if I step high, he gets this frame right back in, right? You want to think of yourself as like Jiminy Cricket, making music, except the music is his grunting, right? So it's like he's here, bring your leg close to your leg and catch his arm and bring it back. Now, we've got a great pin. Hitting. There's an arm bar right here, right? Right there. Or at least the control. hammer fist, hammer fist, hammer fist. But the whole idea is to not give up the pin. Hit, hit, hit. He starts, what would you do? Oh yeah, look, bam, knee, bam, there, back to my position. It's about punch, punch, position. Punch, punch, position. You'll know when you've rocked him. Then that's when you unload, right? But don't unload until you know. So in the beginning, it's about control, opportunistic strikes, move, control, opportunistic strikes, move, control, opportunistic strikes. Everybody clear? So you grab a partner. First, I want you to just practice developing that pressure from the pin. And then think about how to throw the knee in, keep control of the hip. Then the rolling and the hip switch, just like little by little, you add to the whole sequence. Everybody clear? All right.